Hey guys, Chris King here with an outstanding rock star of a therapist, Joanna Jackson, LPC, works at Chris King Counseling Group. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Because I know that you've been looking forward to this ever since I asked.
Oh my gosh, just on the edge of my seat. So excited to do this thing today. For any of my current clients, you will immediately recognize my sarcasm. But that's one thing I love about working here is I get to show up and be my authentic self, which is
Let's
that
go.
texted me yesterday and said, "Hey, we're doing these Zoom interviews. Do you want to do one tomorrow?" I'm pretty sure one of my responses was like, "Gross, I'll see you tomorrow."
That's exactly was what I was going to say. I'm like, the word you used was gross.
But I believe in doing hard things and things outside of my comfort
Okay.
zone. And I believe in modeling that because that's exactly what I ask clients to do every single
All
day.
right.
How
Okay.
horrible would it be if I asked that and had that expectation and wasn't willing to do those things myself?
I okay. Great segue. Now that you're a therapist, you've been doing a lot of work to get to this point. Like, what was it that got you thinking about, when you were younger and you're just like, man, like sitting with people in pain and helping them get from one place to the next, like, is what I want to do. Like, how did that come about?
Like I've gotten this question a lot over the years and they ask it a lot in grad school and all these things. And I feel like I don't have some big aha moment that like
Right.
this is why I'm here. Um, And I think for a lot of people that know me in my personal life, it was a little bit surprising, but not. I'm a really introverted person. I'm fairly
Right.
socially anxious. And so the idea of, oh, you go and sit and talk to strangers that probably find you online for a living, is kind of a wild choice for you. However, I've always been fascinated by people. And I think I've always been, unless I'm anxiously yapping, probably like I'm going to do today, I'm way more, my comfort zone is way more of a listener. And I
Right.
think that's just something that I've always had intrinsically is I just kind of model that in a lot of relationships and things. And I literally think it was as simple as one day someone pulled me aside and said, I think I was probably about 13 or so. And they said, have you thought about like maybe, what are you doing with your life? Have you thought about maybe working to become a therapist? You're a really good listener. You seem to help people feel really seen and heard. And truthfully, like, no, I hadn't. Like, I love animals. And so I always thought I would do something with that. And the more I got into it, I started taking more classes in psychology in high school and kind of concurrently in school. And I absolutely loved it. And I just never looked back. I don't think I had a moment where I really stopped to consider anything else that I wanted to do, which is great because I didn't know a lot about what it took to become a therapist. I just
Oh,
liked the
right.
idea of it. And if I would have known in high school or, in eighth grade that we were going to have to go get internships, that we were going to have to go film recordings when we're learning how to be therapists, I would have
Right.
never gotten here. So it was for the best that I didn't know all of that in the beginning. I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have let that fear and anxiety take over.
That's super interesting. Like that. So that commitment to that thing that you saw, like that carrot at the end of the stick, like this is the thing I really want to do. Um, y- One thing that characterizes your work, and one of the things I notice about working with you is that like you are all in, and your commitment to people and to your craft uh, really shows. Here's a question that I think is I'm interested in. It might feel like a self-serving question. But what is it about our place and our culture? You said this a little earlier, joking, but that jives with the kind of therapist that you want to be. Because I think that I think there's something really special about the way you and all of our people do things, but they're very uniquely you. And so and and people, can choose to work a lot of different places. Like, so what is it about the way that we do things or allow things to be done that jives with kind of therapist that you are and how that might give you energy?
Yeah. So, um, obviously, I think one of the first things that really drew me to working for you and with your company is I think a lot of us talk about is the autonomy, right? Like
Yeah.
we get to set our schedule, we get to make a lot of decisions independently, as long as they're still within our mission statement and serving the greater good of what we're here to do. But the longer I have been here, yeah, that's still like probably number one. That's a huge piece of it. But I think it's more the freedom to be authentically myself and how I show up as a person and as a therapist.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not necessarily like what drew me here. It's something I learned over time was possible, and it's why I'm still here, is
Hmm.
because I know I can text you or have a conversation with you that is my genuine, authentic reaction to something. And you know, and have enough trust in me at this point that, like, even if it's hard, even if I'm grumpy about it, even if I'm anxious about it, like, I'm still going to show up and do the thing, but I have space to be me within it. And that's really
Yeah.
valuable to me as a person.
Well, and it's a good example of something that we believe, and you fit right in. It's just like the greatest gift that we're going to give in therapy is the therapist, because the therapist is going to have lots of ideas and experiences and varying levels of competencies and or kind of your thing. Maybe, maybe you're a trauma person, or maybe you work with littles or what, but those things are a little more variable. But like, man, a person's respect and love for people and willingness to be a part of a healing process, like to get in there and do that work, and to be dependable and helpful. Like, I mean, that's just huge, and it's hard to teach, you know? And so I think that that we can be bound by that, like that, what you bring to the table as yourself is like the foundation. Like, it's beautiful. It's good. Talk about kind of who your main clientele is. What kind of stuff are you learning? What kind of work? If I'm calling the office and I'm like, I'm kind of working through X, or maybe I'm a
Mhm.
certain kind of, like, and someone, and Andrea might say, well, Joanna would be great. Like, what are you doing? What are you working with? What's kind of energizing to you these days?
Yeah, so I would say the bulk of the clients I work with, probably even as high as like 80% of the clients that I work with the most are people that have experienced trauma, but more like complex trauma.
Ah,
So the bulk of the clients that I see, and I've worked with some clients that there's a really pivotal, significant event
hmm,
that was traumatic, and that is why they have come to see me. The bulk of the clients I serve, it's not some one or two seminal events that have happened, but it's this chronic and complex history of trauma that they have experienced. Like, and I was just talking about this with a client the other day that was like, well, most of the clients that I see, like, we've gotten to the point where the trauma we've experienced wasn't some big event. So it
yeah,
becomes easy to minimize and invalidate and feel like, well, I don't know why I'm feeling this way in my life right now. There's something wrong with me. I
right,
like, I've I don't have some big story of, hey, this one time this thing happened.
yeah,
But really, the more you dig and the more you look, like, it's, yeah, like, because for you that was normalized. That was just a Tuesday. That was just growing up. That's
yeah,
just what I experienced in childhood. And I didn't realize that wasn't normal until I was so far removed from it. But all of that is still in my body and my nervous system. And now I'm trying to wrestle with how to make sense of that and how to heal and move forward when I've spent so much of my life not fully understanding that what happened wasn't okay.
yeah, right,
And
right,
so that probably makes up the bulk of the clients that see me, and that's not just like one diagnosis, right? So the diagnoses that stem from that kind of complex chronic trauma can look like PTSD. It can look like anxiety, it can look like depression. Um, it can look like OCD, but one thing that I notice is no matter what's going on and what, we end up deciding is the best fit for how those symptoms are presenting, we also work with things that, okay, so, like, here's your diagnosis, but what do I actually do every day?
yeah, right,
We I work a lot on self-esteem, identity work, figuring out who you are and who you want to be and how to get there. That looks like talking about healthy boundaries, talking about what are your values, what feels good and congruent and authentic to you and the life you want to live. Um, More than that, it can also look like, I do a lot of work with like spiritual deconstruction and reconstruction. Anywhere you're at on that spectrum. I don't practice from, and I know we have a lot of great people in the office that if someone comes in and they're like, hey, I want to do specifically this certain faith based kind of counseling,
Right.
we have great referrals for that.
Yeah.
My approach is more, I'm going to take whatever that aspect is for you, like whatever spirituality or faith. And if that's important to you and that's part of the work we do together, I'm going to collaborate with you. That's not necessarily something I'm going to enforce and bring to the table,
Yeah.
but that is a big part of just holding that space for people to explore that, is a big part of the work that I do as well.
And you've been busy,
Yeah.
seeing a lot of folks. Um, what has been in the last couple of years, what has, I'll wrap up here in just a second, but what has been satisfying to you or what have you enjoyed, um, looking back and in the work?
Mm. So I think probably the thing I enjoy the most, and maybe it will sound cliche, but it's truly the clients. Um,
Yeah.
I I still have, and I hope I do for as long as I'm in this field, days where, sure, like anyone, like I'm stressed or I'm tired or whatever. But I would say most of the days I wake up and I have a moment throughout my day where it just hits me that, like, this is what I get to do with my life. This is
Hmm.
what I get to do for a living.
Yeah.
And I have the coolest job in the world. Um, my clients are really, and I remember, people asking me when I was going to grad school, what's your emphasis? What do you want to focus on? What do you want to work with? And for me, it was always trauma. Like I was always the most interested in that. And people outside of the field, people in my life would be like, oh,
Yeah,
and that
right.
was almost always the reaction, right? Like it was never like, oh, that's so cool. Tell me about that. Like, why do you want to do that? It was always just like,
Exciting.
oh, that seems like a lot. That seems really heavy. Are you sure? Like, do you want to do that
Yeah,
forever?
right.
And my answer to that is really, and this is confirmed in the work that I've done, is think about it for a second. Like, have you ever met someone who has been through a lot of trauma in their life?
Yeah, the
How
answer is
do they show
yeah.
up? How do they
Right.
present? Odds are they're probably the funniest person in your friend group. They're a great time because how else have they gotten to where they've gotten in life?
Gotten through it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say, like, oh, we use humor to avoid. Like, sure, of course we do. But we also use humor to cope and we also use humor to build resilience. I have met some of the funniest people in the world through being a trauma therapist.
100%.
And we will laugh. If you come at me, I have a very dark sense of humor. If you drop a dark joke, I'm going to laugh harder than you at it. It's okay. This is a safe space for that. And then we're going to go unpack it because we do both. Some sessions, they're going to be really heavy. They're going to feel like work. We're going to cry sometimes. And I
Yeah,
do
right.
mean I might as well because I'm real and I'm authentic.
The
But we
people are
will
the
laugh.
best, you know?
Mhm. And that inspires me. That inspires me every day. That inspires me to not quit my job to avoid having to do this thing that makes me super uncomfortable because I tell myself, I see people show up and give their all after everything that they have been through, that
Yeah.
they still have hope that life can look different. And they show up willing to be brave and vulnerable with me every single day. And that pushes and inspires me to continue growing and getting out of my comfort zone because I don't ever want to be a therapist that just talks the talk.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
here to walk the walk. Your hard might not look like my hard and vice versa, but I am committed to this process with you.
Well, I think that the beauty of it, there's a lot of beauties of it, but one of the things that's beautiful about it is just the variety and how eh, with every person that comes through the door, the story is different and we get kind of blindsided, sometimes in hard ways. But a lot of times for me, and this is what I'm hearing you say too, is just like the beauty of their story and the potential to help them move to the next place is like
Yeah.
that's an awesome thing. It's awesome. And these people that come through our doors have such amazing value. So participating with that is it's just great. And I hear you saying that. Um, if we put this out there and then people are like, hey, I want to go see Joanna. Do you have any room right now?
I actually
A
have a wait
little,
list right now.
little
Yeah.
bit of a wait list. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just started. No one's on it yet, technically. So pretty close to the
Um,
top, but yeah,
if
there
you're
is a wait.
watching this, like there probably will be a wait list, but have no fear. Like call, get on it, like reach out to our office, info@chriskingcounseling.com or 918-760-5243. Google us, send smoke signals, do the thing. And we are here to help. I want to say in front of YouTube that we're certainly glad that you're on the team, Joanna. Truly.
Thank you. I'm really
Yeah.
happy to be here most of
Yeah.
the time. Except for moments like this.
We're usually happy to have you too. Um, guys, thanks so much. We'll talk again soon. Bye. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.